Losing Donetsk will shake all of Europe. Greetings, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will continue to explore new revelations surrounding Trump's peace ultimatum. That this plan is no different from Trump forcing Zelensky to surrender. So what is it? We will find out. Kale nightmare. 70 kilometers from the front line will shake the whole of Europe. As 7 major cities recently attacked by Russia are falling into dangerous situations. Early forecasts say they will collapse, including Kupiansk, Liman, Ivs, Makrop, Minokrat, Konstantinivka, Juliapol, and Oryup. Among them, Russia has just the strategic city of Kupiansk, while Ukraine denies this information. Reuters report today, November 21st, capturing Kupiansk and controlling most of Van and Pop is evidence that the northern part of the front line element in Russia's current strategy. According to this news agency, by controlling the city of Kupiansk in Kharkiv, Russia is trying to turn a tactical success into a political signal. Meanwhile, the main frontline POK is nearly complete, with 95% of the territory falling into Russian hands. The battle in POK is not only about seizing a logistically important city, but also to advance to the industrial cities of Krasmatos and Soviet, Russia's last 2 strategic objectives in the Donbas region. The French TV channel BFM identified Russia's main target in Donbass as Krasmatos. This target is located 80 kilometers from the line, and if Ukraine loses Donbass, the whole will be shaken. According to BFM TV, Krasmatos is Krasmatos machine manufacturing plant. This is the largest heavy mechanical engineering factory established in 1934. This factory produces almost every massive component, nuclear power plants, and rolling mills. It also produced the shafts for the Dnieper hydroelectric plant, hydraulic power transmission system for the NRE hydroelectric. The Novokrasmatos industrial zone covers 328 hectares. This giant enterprise is the crown jewel of Donbass. Before the war, it employed 13,000 people. Ukrainians produced giant hydraulic presses, ship turbines, icebreaker propulsion systems, and components for aerospace, rail, and space industries. This was an export hub serving more than 70 countries and a central link in Ukraine's military-industrial complex. The war began in February 2022. Closed the plant to prevent it from falling into Russian hands. For 2023, the plant operations with about 5,660 employees and has an important role in maintaining and modernizing equipment, producing large-caliber ammunition and rifles. Krasmatos is also home to another powerful factory, the Staroazmatos machine manufacturing plant. The factories in Krasmatos represent all economic activities in Donbass. European countries have long considered Donbass a value. It could breathe new life into Europe's aging economy and give the EU advantage over the US, Japan, Russia, and China. However, the current situation is unfavorable for Ukraine's military, and these factories will be annexed by Russia, who likes it or not. Krasmatos is only 80 kilometers from Pokrop, and if this city falls, Krasmatos will be seriously threatened. This divides all of Europe, which has long been hugely from Donbass's industries. Even more dangerous, Trump's newly revealed 8-point plan shows that Donbass will be ceded to Russia. Zelensky is under pressure to accept the U.S.-Russia peace plan. Yesterday, November 20th, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt officially confirmed that the peace plan for Ukraine has been quietly built over the past month with the involvement of Secretary of State Special Envoy WCO. She said that these 2 U.S. officials have behind-the-scenes talks with both Russia and Ukraine. Also, yesterday afternoon, November 20th, there was a meeting between U.S. Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll and Ukraine Commander-in-Chief General Zelenskiy. In the meeting, General Sky informed the Americans about the current battlefield situation. Although Zelenskiy did not mention the 28-point plan, it does not mean the U.S. is not discussing it. And General Risk shows that the U.S. is extremely tough on negotiation matters. The president of Ukrainian Prime Minister Julia Zrevedin with the U.S. general afterward, and the investments are said to be an effort to create economic incentives for Ukraine in exchange for political concessions. In addition, Ukraine, Zelenskyy's meeting with General Griscone also took place same time, and the U.S. general is said to have urged the Ukrainian president to quickly reach a peace agreement with Russia. Late last night, November 20th, confirmed on X that he and General Riscon discussed options to achieve real peace. He also confirmed that Ukraine and the U.S. on terms to end the war constructively, honestly, and quickly. This statement is quite vague and does not show that Zelensky accepts Trump's 28-point draft. It should be noted that earlier, Zelensky was not pleased with this plan, proposed broader negotiations with Europe's participation. The US does not want that because it would include terms that rejects and everything again. But meeting between Zelensky and General Griscon, U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Juliette Davis announced that negotiations on the plan to end the war between Russia and Ukraine have progressed at an White House press secretary Kievid also said the meeting concluded positive. Although the 28-point plan has not been officially published, Ukrainian opposition MP Alex Gorenko revealed November 20th. We will cite several key points below. Ukraine receives security guarantee with conditions. Second, Ukraine acknowledges non-alignment status, rejects NATO membership in its constitution. Third, Ukraine's armed forces are limited to 600,000 troops. Ukraine remains a non-nuclear state. Kharkiv, Donetsk, and Luhansk are recognized as Russian territory, thus acknowledging this. And Zaporizhzhia are frozen along the line of control. Forces withdraw from DAS areas they currently control. Territories are internationally recognized as Russian and declared demilitarized zones. Russian forces enter these demilitarized areas. Both sides commit to change borders by force. NATO will forces in Ukraine. Legally, Russia guarantees non-aggression policy toward Ukraine and Europe. US and Europe will implement a package to rebuild Ukraine. $100 billion in Russian assets will be used for Ukraine's reconstruction. The US receives 50% of the proceeds. Europe adds another $100 billion. Other frozen Russian assets will be allocated to joint US-Russia project. Sanctions on Russia will be lifted. Russia returns to the G8. Long-term economic cooperation between the US and Russia will sides involved in the conflict will receive full amnesty for wartime actions and commit not to file or pursue future complaints. The related ideologies and activities must be abolished and banned. If Russia violates the agreement, the US reinstates sanctions. If Ukraine violates, the US and Europe withdraw their security guarantees. And finally, it will be legally binding. Its implementation will be led by a peace council chaired by Trump. On the European side, EU foreign ministers met yesterday. Overall, they oppose Trump's plan and consider it equivalent to forcing Ukraine to surrender. Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Kalalas stated that any successful agreement must include the consensus of Europe and Ukraine, and Trump's plan shows no concessions from Russia. Russia hasn't any official comment on whether they agree with the plan, except for the statement's envoy Kirill Dmitriev, saying Moscow are cooperating on a peace resolution project. However, there are some Kremlin has a plan because many details in the leaked draft Moscow's conditions in their Alaska version. Meanwhile, Bloomberg reports that Zelensky is under pressure to accept the US-Russia peace plan, despite Ukrainian public dissatisfaction about the US lifting sanctions on Russia and war crimes investigations. The US proposed peace plan creates some hope for compromise, but its resistance goes much deeper. In essence, the 28-point plan is not just about reconciling sides or ending the war in a traditional difference, but about restructuring power across Eurasia, where Ukraine's fate and Russia's become more tightly linked with the U.S. The hidden aspect of the plan is to restore direct U.S. interaction as a central mechanism for allocating regional influence. The U.S. becomes the arbitrator and architect, not NATO, and certainly not the EU. The plan deliberately bypasses Europe's of the negotiation arena, turning the EU into an observer. As a result, bilateral control over Eastern Europe decisions are made solely by the US and Russia without other participants. China is also excluded, showing this aims to weaken the Russia-China axis. In framework, EU becomes a territory under external control and a platform for strategic balance between the American and Russian superpowers. Ukraine's NATO membership path is not just a concession to Russia, but also a way to isolate Ukraine from EU control and reshape NATO's security. Economically, bringing Russia back into the global economy is a geopolitical. Russia will receive economic incentives through sanction relief, and the U.S. will move to normalize relations with two things Putin strongly desires. This indicates the Trump administration is ready to reshape global economic relationships. Lifting sanctions reintroduces Russia into the Western financial system. Russia joint economic projects binding Russia's elite to American capital and Russia-China trade dependency, a key objective for Trump. Additionally, calls for complete amnesty for all warring parties, reducing Russia's legal liability for initiating the war and ending. In short, Trump's 28-point plan aims to remove the EU, NATO, and major powers from the game. Now the game is imposed solely by the two superpowers, the US and Russia, European continent. Not sidelining the EU, Trump is also gradually pulling out of NATO, causing panic among European leaders. The US Abandoned NATO leadership pushes Germany into the hot seat of defending Europe. In a shocking event, Trump has pushed European allies, especially Germany, to take on far greater responsibility in NATO, including assuming the role of Allied Commander Europe. U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew relayed Trump's stance at the Berlin Security Conference, reportedly shocking attendees. German G-Fen reacted cautiously, realizing that the Supreme Commander role remains primary responsibility and rejecting the idea that Germany could or should replace it anytime soon. Despite diplomatic restraint, the exchange between the U.S. and NATO members deepening rifts within the alliance. The U.S. insists Europe must strengthen its own military capability. The U.S. shifts attention to Asia. Since NATO's founding in 1949, the Supreme Commission has been held exclusively by U.S. generals, a symbol of American commitment to Europe's security. Ambassador showed Trump is preparing for a fundamental shift. The U.S. is gradually withdrawing from a leading role in Europe and turning to the Asia front China's rise. Trump's skepticism existed for a long time. He has repeatedly described the affair, unbalanced, and a burden on the U.S. In Trump's worldview, Russia is only a threat, while China is a global rival. This is the Indo-Pacific region at the center of foreign and defense policy. The Trump administration has already begun relocating assets away from Europe. In October, the Pentagon quietly withdrew 700 eastern flank, redeploying them to Indo-Pacific theaters. U.S. War Secretary Pete Hegseth publicly stated that Europe is no longer a top priority in the U.S.'s global strategies. Logistics, missile defense systems, and carriers are also being redirected to potential flashpoints such as the Taiwan Strait, Sea, and the Western Pacific. While in Asia, Japan, Australia, the Philippines, and South Korea have received grants, Europe is increasingly anxious. Trump Europe to lead NATO on its own makes Ukraine nervous. With Russia controlling contested territory in the east, a weakened or divided NATO further isolate Ukraine. And that concludes today's commentary. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye, and see you in the next programs.